Parents of Reddit, what is your best "why is my kid so stupid" moment? Story 1. My toddler watched at least an hour of an animated movie populated entirely by talking animals. Suddenly, a giraffe came on screen and said something. My kid stood up, pointed at the TV, and angrily yelled, "What? Giraffes can't talk." Story 2. When my brother was around 6, he decided he wanted to play Tarzan with a cord hanging in his room. However, the cord kept slipping from his hand, so he decided to swing with it around his neck instead. My poor grandmother walked into the room to find her grandchild apparently trying to hang himself. Story 3. My son, at age 10, I was trying to figure out why my shower was draining so slowly and wound up pulling the drain strainer out. Inside I found a bunch of brown paper goop. It took me a while to figure out what it was. I went to my son and asked him, "Did you tear up a toilet paper tube into little pieces and cram those pieces down the drain in the shower?" "Yes, okay, brain fries, how about not?" "Sure." Story 4. Our daughter, when asked what she wanted to be when she grows up, answered, "I want to be a strawberry, but if that's too hard, I want to be purple, the color purple, the fruit strawberry." She was 5. Story 5. When I was a kid, my little brother woke up and thought he saw Frankenstein walking down our hallway in the middle of the night. He took off running in his underwear, out the door, down the block, several blocks really. A couple picked him up maybe 4 blocks away and brought him home. He was on his way to my grandmother's trailer a good half-mile away. Kicker was, the Frankenstein he saw was my grandmother, who was staying with us that night. Took a while to live that one down. Story 6. When I was 11, we were at a park that had one of those swirly slides that is kind of like a tunnel. Well, I wanted to act like a mountain climber and tie a rope around myself and jump down the slide to climb back up. What was the best spot to tie the rope? I asked myself. The neck. Good location to easily grab the rope and pull myself back up. Plus convenient tying spot. My parents ran to me yelling and stopped me mid-knot, tying a rope around my neck to jump down a slide. In retrospect, edit, thank you for my first silver kind stranger. Story 7. When my sister was 18, she was planning a trip to California after HS graduation. She spent several days calling banks to get the exchange rate for money because somehow she was absolutely convinced that regular US currency in Pennsylvania was not usable in California. She thought the banks were all lying to her, that it was the same money. I am surprised she even found California. Story 8. If I can be the kid who made my parents ask this question, I walked into a wall when I was 5 because I was walking around looking through binoculars backwards. Got these 2 massive ring bruises around my eyes. Story 9. My older brother carved my name into the side of my mum's car with a rock for whatever reason and tried to blame it on me. I was like 4 years old and couldn't write yet. Story 10. Son always has mystery bruises. Swears he doesn't run into things. We hear him yell "ouch" from his room, the bathroom, or when he opens the fridge into his face. Last night he was on his tiptoes looking at something on the table. He lowered to his flat feet and almost bit his stupid tongue off because his chin was still over the table. So much blood. Edit. A lot of people keep commenting that he might have this disease or that disease. He doesn't. He smokes kids older than him by 2 years in soccer. He skis with the 12-year-olds. He outruns 7 to 10-year-olds. He is the most athletic kid I have seen in his school. He is just a bit airhead and forgetful of his surroundings. Story 11. When my daughter was around 5 years old, I told her to start putting her toys away. She told me she couldn't because she didn't have any hands, while showing me her hands. Story 12. My nieces. I don't have kids. Me and the older niece 7 are playing Minecraft while the younger niece 5 watches. We build a small little town and I build the younger niece a little house in the town for her to play in, then give her the controller. We are all sitting on my couch. The younger niece immediately places TNT all over the town and sets one off. Me and the older niece sit there and watch as the whole town explodes. This makes older niece sad and bummed out to where she almost cries, but didn't. I told younger niece that she is in trouble and she made her sister sad, and to go to her room for like 5 minutes. It came just the Uncle LL. After like 5 minutes of hearing me and older niece laughing and playing Minecraft together, she comes out of her room and asks if she can come back in and watch play. I told her you can play, but only after you apologize to your sister. Younger niece runs out of the room screaming, crying, not sure why. Again, just the uncle. Another 5 minutes go by. Younger niece comes back into the room after hearing us still laughing and playing and again, asks if she can watch play, to which I respond the same thing. Apologize to your sister and the controller is yours. She looks at me dead in the face. I can't apologize. I can only speak Spanish. I said, what? I can't apologize. I can only speak Spanish. Well then apologize in Spanish. I'm sorry, okay? Hey, race the controller. Story 13. My son has microwaved ramen noodles with no water a few times. Just so you know, they are flammable and smoke horribly and turn your microwave an awful yellow color. Story 14. My youngest, around the age of 3, lost having curtains in his room after the second time he bent the hook that the curtain rod hangs onto because he tried swinging on his curtains. It turns out that the tiny piece of metal that's designed to hold the weight of a curtain rod is not designed to support a child. Several years later, Wed moved to a new house and decided he was certainly old enough to stop swinging on curtains. We made sure to sit down with him to explain that when he was little he would swing on them, and that it broke the curtain rods. Now that he was around 6 or 7, he was old enough to remember not to climb the curtains. He lost the curtains the next day, after he tried swinging on them. Perhaps he thought we were lying to him. Okay, but that could happen to anyone, and 6 or 7, that's still pretty young. When he was 10, he grabbed the wooden towel bar in the bathroom and fell backwards. And then kept falling, because the small wooden rod was only attached to the rest of the towel bar via a small piece of that was glued to the main structure, and once again, was meant to support the weight of a wet towel or two, not a 10-year-old child. Near gave himself a concussion on the side of the bathtub that time. My mother always brings up when she asked my brother to turn on the kettle, and he answered, shall I make it hot or cold, and I thought I was stupid. Story 15 On Mother's Day, when I was only small, my dad told me for Mother's Day we would give my mom a lion because she had had a stressful week between jobs. Of course, tiny me had no concept of what a lion was and assumed my dad said a lion. Me, are we actually getting mom a lion, Dad? Yes, your mom really deserved a lion, so we'll give her one this morning. I then proceed to sprint excitedly to my parents' room, climb onto the bed, jump up and down over my poor sleeping mother screaming, wake up, we are getting you a lion, wake up right now. My mother did not get a lion. Or a lion for that matter. Story 16 I was that kid. My parents took my siblings and I to a greenhouse garden. Everyone was on their best behavior until I got the sudden urge to lick some foamy stuff off of a window. I was always a good kid, never caused any trouble, but for whatever reason I had this compulsion to lick this foamy stuff off the window. Poison control had to be called. My parents were frantic. It was an ordeal. I was anaphylactic to milk at the time too, and I was definitely old enough to know better. Story 17 Not my kid, but my niece loves crawling around on the floor trying to lick doorstops. When she's not doing that, she actively searches for dust lint on the floor and tries to devour it before you take it from her. Story 18 This is about me, and I'm sure my mom almost killed me for this. In 5th grade, I decided it would be a wonderful idea to lock my backpack to my desk with a bike lock I brought to school for some reason and swallow the key for it. I went to the ER and the lock stayed there the whole year. Story 19 Our kids were probably 10 and 6. We are at a restaurant and they both order hot chocolate. Our drinks come. Both my wife and I are putting our straws in our own drinks and not paying attention. Both of the children simultaneously stick straws into the steaming hot chocolate and take huge drinks, and start freaking out. Story 20 When we allowed our kids to choose a pint of ice cream each, my son insisted on grabbing the gallon and wouldn't be told differently. We placed it back in the freezer and told him we were going to check out, so he had 1 minute to grab a different ice cream or get nothing. As our turn to check out comes, our son approaches with both the same gallon of ice cream as well as a jar of maraschino cherries. Story 21 Hey mommy, wanna see a trick? Sure honey, show me a trick. Kid runs around in circles to build up momentum, very deliberately crashes head first into the wall, then falls down and starts crying. Good trick, sweetie. Story 22 As a kid I would always try to touch hot things like the stove or the clothes iron even after my mom warned me. She eventually figured it, she can touch it, burn herself and learn her lesson. Well, I did not learn the first time, or the second time, or the third time. Honestly, my mother lost count on how many times I actually burned myself. She started guarding me again since I was clearly too dumb to learn from my mistakes, so I got smarter about how to get around her. I couldn't make the connection of careful it will hurt like don't touch it, but I could make the connection of do it quickly pretend like you listen Edie I'll be able to touch it. I also had a cousin who had an interesting reaction to punishment. Let's say he wasn't allowed to play a video game. He would then try to get rid of all his toys, demand to only be served food that he hated and sit on the floor facing a wall. When asked what he was doing he would answer, since you seem to like taking away things that make me happy, I've decided to be miserable forever. Happy now, my guess is he wanted the grown-ups to feel bad for him, but the whole thing was hilarious. So dramatic. Walked into the bathroom to see my 3-year-old girl with a toilet bowl brush in her mouth. So that was disgusting. Story 23 I was the stupid kid. I was at my cousin's above-ground pool when I was around 5 and there was a bumblebee sitting on the deck. My mom saw it, and said go around it. I proceeded to step on it and get stung. I think my little brain said jump over it and instead I jumped on it. A bee lost its life that day. Story 24 My son came home one afternoon from school with one shoe. Me, what happened to your other shoe? Son, I lost it. What do you mean you lost it? S, I lost it. I don't know where it is. So, when did you lose your shoe? S, at lunch. So you've been walking around all afternoon with only one shoe? S, yup. M begins to understand why hamsters eat their young. Edit fixed syntax error. Story 25 When the axe challenge was a thing, apparently, you spray axe over the front of your shirt, light it on fire, then take the shirt off. I think that's it anyway. This genius gets his arm stuck or something as he pulled the shirt off inside out, so, of course, the fire is now burning his face. He gets it off with the help of his friends and gets taken to the hospital with second-degree burns by his friend's mother because he was staying over. That was a fun phone call to get at 3 a.m. Dad, I'm okay, but I had an accident and Karen has taken me to the hospital to get treated. I told her it wasn't a big deal, but she made me call. Story 26 My 12-year-old daughter blamed a squirrel when we asked how the borax for her slime projects moved from the garage to the kitchen counter. It's so fulfilling to go from I'm pretty sure you're lying to 100 I know you're lying. Story 27 My parents caught me talking to myself when I was around 5. I had just gotten out of the shower and was staring at myself in the mirror. I had sucked my lips under my teeth and telling myself I have no lips. I have no lips. My mom started laughing and asking what I was doing, to which I replied by popping my lips back to their regular position and exclaiming, lips, after all these years. Even I knew I was stupid after that one. Story 28 One time when I was half asleep as a kid I got out of bed to go to the toilet, but instead of turning left into the bathroom I turned right and pissed down the stairs. Story 29. I was at my sister's for Thanksgiving, and my niece who is 5 went to feed the dog. She was out of eyesight for maybe 2 minutes when my sister yells, "Stop eating the dog food." And you can hear my niece drop the bowl out of fright because she got caught. My sister never got off the couch and I laughed about it for like 10 minutes straight. Story 30. Not me, but my younger brother loved eating ants. He just grabbed a bunch of them and put them in his mouth and started chewing. I guess they bit him, but he didn't care. Edit for spelling. Story 31. When one of my boys was around 9, he came to me with his hands duct taped completely. I think his brother helped him put on the finishing touches, but the idea and most of the execution was his own. Why on earth did you do that? I wanted to know what would happen. And you couldn't reason out ahead of time that your hands would be useless. This was an unexpected result. Shrug. Okay, well you can add to your results list that I'm happy to leave your hands taped up. If you're not smart enough to figure out what would happen ahead of time, you're probably better off this way. He's 26 now, but I still maintain that if my sister hadn't cut his hands free, I would have left him taped up to this day. Story 32. My sister lost their dog and actually had it cremated. It sits in a locked box on her dresser. One day her 4-year-old knocked over a lamp. He said the dog came out of the box and knocked it over. He doesn't quite understand the concept of death yet. Story 33. When I was in like 4th grade, my mom was doing a surrogacy for a friend and I told my teacher that my mommy is having a baby and it's not my daddy's, but it's okay because he knows and we aren't going to keep it. Very awkward parent-teacher conferences ensued. I also fell out of my chair and hit my face on my desk every day consistently. They sent a note home with me every day saying Zombie Hunter fell out of her chair and flashed her chin on her desk today. Again. Story 34. Several instances make me sure my parents thought this on the daily. Stubbed my 3 central toes left foot so bad I thought they were stubbed. They were broken for 6 months and I just walked the pain off. My mom actually smacked me in the head when she found out at my doctor's appointment when I asked the doc if it was normal to have stubbed toes for 6 months. Doc looked, said they were broken but have since healed. Forgot the word cow and replaced it with chair for almost 2 months. I was 13. Playing with my lightsabers with my brother, the ones from Ultra Sabers, so you could probably beat a man to death, and they still work, and busted the out of my finger. I thought it was sore. Knuckle was broken. That was this year. AM 21. This one just made my mom say I'm built to last. Crashed my bike. Broke knee and leg, ripped meniscus, severed ACL. Broken tibia and femur at the ends. After 2 weeks no use I was able to stand walking on it again. 3 months later I'm told I need surgery, and that I shouldn't be able to walk seeing as it's still broken, bones and all. Story 35. Obligatory. Not a parent but younger family member. He was 5 at the time and it was his birthday. He got grounded earlier that day because he was being a little head at church, so his punishment was he was allowed to open his presents but not allowed to play with them until his punishment was over. He was not happy about this and he came up with an excellent strategy to get back at his parents. He decided that if he wasn't going to be allowed to play with them today he would punish his parents by never playing with them. To accomplish this he tried to throw them away. He got a big bag, threw all of the toys in and kept walking around the house in circles trying to find a garbage bin big enough to throw them in. So his logic was, I want to play with these toys. If you won't allow me to play with them today, then he'll never play with them. He really is a sweet kid, though he was just having a really bad week. Story 36. Once when my nephew was around 3 years old we were eating breakfast when he asked if he could go play. I told him to eat 2 more bites of bacon and he could get down. He said he couldn't because then his muscles would get too big and be too heavy. Good answer, kid. Story 37. Not a parent but me. My parents aren't rich but well off enough. My mom had this Prada wallet, and when I was in 1st grade, I wrote her name on it with a ballpoint pen. I thought it would help her and make people realize it was hers if anybody tried to steal it. But obviously I shouldn't have done that. And since it was ballpoint, it was difficult to wash off on leather. 10 years later, I googled Prada pink wallet and holy, it was 1,000. I feel guilty all the time whenever I look into her closet and see the sad wallet with her smeared name in terrible handwriting on it now. Story 38. My son was 15 at the time and decided he wanted to make pancakes. So, he also decided to use the plastic food cover for the microwave as a mixing bowl. Now if you haven't used one of these, it's full of holes on the top to let steam out and protect your microwave interior from splatters. Well, I come downstairs and he's mad as. There is pancake batter all over the countertop and he's huffing and puffing. This is the worst mixing bowl I've ever seen. Who puts holes in the bottom of a mixing bowl? I looked at him, the situation, and said, "Clean this up please," and walked out. I was really worried that he was developing dementia or something. Story 39. My 2 kids asked me for bananas for their school lunches. So Monday I bought 4 bananas. On Friday all the banana were still there, so I asked why they didn't eat them. They both swore that they ate a banana every day. It must have been the other kid who didn't eat their banana. As if I can't count to 4, they are 12 and 13. This happened 2 weeks ago. Story 40. My kids actually seem okay, but hey, race something I did, young about 9 and walking through Paddy's Market in Sydney, about 1971, Dad says I can have 10 a decent amount of the time, to buy anything I want in the market for my birthday. So we're walking around, and I spot a giant crab. This thing is about a foot across. I decided that is what I want for my birthday. I want the crab, son. We have nowhere to keep it. We can keep it in the bathtub. What if we want a bath? We can take showers instead. I did not get my crab and cried about it, and refused to pick anything else too. Story 41. Not a parent, but my 6-year-old brother. My parents ripped up the carpet to lay down new hardwood flooring. In between laying down the new, my brother took a Sharpie, drew his signature potato-shaped caricature on the bare flooring of himself, signed it with his shitty 6-year-old handwriting, and then refused it was him when we asked why he felt the need to draw on the floor. My parents loved the stupidity of it all, and it's still there underneath the floorboards. Story 42. My toddler came to me after Sunday school crying and sobbing. When I asked him what the matter was, he told me that he had given his heart to Jesus and that Jesus still had not given it back to him. The precious little dimwit thought he was going to die. Oh. Story 43. My 1-year-old daughter recently poked herself in the eye as an experiment, got angry with her own hand for hurting her, then repeated the experiment 4 more times before she decided that she had enough data to know that poking yourself in the eye isn't pleasant. Story 44. Not my kid, but myself. I shoved a peanut butter and jelly sandwich into a VCR slot when I was like 9. Then I tried to reach inside to fish it out. I was stuck with my hand in the slot up to my wrist until my mom got home from work a couple hours later. I don't know why I did it, but we no longer had a VCR player after that. Story 45. When my son was 16, he drove his car to school for the first time, and we cautioned him to make sure he locked the doors. It was an older car that didn't have remote locks, so he calls me from the parking lot to ask exactly how to lock the car. I said, "What do you mean, just press the lock button?" His reply, "But then how will I get out of the car?" Story 46. Last year, my son 12 at the time was sent to the principal's office and I received a call. The principal was trying not to laugh, which confused me initially, and explained that my son was supposed to be in English class writing an assignment about making mistakes. He couldn't think of an example, decided to skip the assignment, and instead made a paper plane and flew it around the classroom. Story 47. All the time with my 8-year-old daughter, can I insert activity? Me not right now, maybe later daughter. Literally 1 minute later, can I insert activity? Me not right now, and if you ask again it's a no for the rest of the day. Daughter literally 1 minute later, can I? Story 48. I'm sure there are many more than this and probably better, but this is a more recent one I remember. He's 4 and been having issues waiting too long to go, so he will get a little bit in his underwear. At first it was very sporadic and not often. It started to become more often, so we discussed it with him. So one night I get that waft of smell while our kids were downstairs playing. We have a dog, so thought maybe it was him. See no, so ask our youngest to come over and it's him. Asked if he waited too long and pooped a little in his underwear. No dad, I really didn't. I know I didn't, so go upstairs and check his underwear. Point out and show him there was some in his underwear and he says that wasn't me. Told him to go potty, then we would talk. Goes in and does his thing, then comes out and we talk. I start by telling him again that the one thing in our house that will definitely get a punishment is lying. We are pretty lenient on other stuff. He stuck to it wasn't me. So he proceeds to tell me he wants to find out also and acts like he's getting mad curious. So he proceeds to go downstairs and ask his brother and sisters if they pooped in his underwear. I mean grilling them and not accepting them, saying no. Eventually I got him to admit it. Told him if he would have just said yes at the beginning he would have cleaned out his undies and that would have been it. Since he lied he had another punishment. I'll admit I let it play out some because this boy full on committed to it. Story 49. When I was a little kid, maybe 5 or so, I somehow managed to wedge my head between the balusters of our second floor railing because I thought it would be funny. My parents and the local fire department did not find it quite as amusing. Story 50. Probably a tie between when he announced he was going to play plastic ghost and pulled a plastic bag over his head, or when he refuses to drink water or blow his nose when he has a cold. When told both of those things help him breathe, his response is always, "No breathing, I hate breathing," which plastic ghost would seem to substantiate. Story 51. My daughter was trying to look over the fence in our yard, so she climbed on top of an aquarium, falling through and requiring stitches in her legs and feet. Immediately adjacent to the aquarium was a stepladder. Story 52. When I was 10 I would ride my bike from the park to my house as fast as I could and time myself. I would really try and go as fast as humanly possibly, pretending that a cheetah was chasing me. This one day, just like any other, I was pedaling as hard as my 10-year-old legs would let me. I was so intent on my breaking my record that I was staring at my stopwatch the whole time. Next thing I know, I look up and my dad's car is right in front of me, parked in our driveway. I slam into it going probably close to 20 miles per hour. The whole side window was shattered and there was a huge dent in the outline of my helmet, handlebars and tire. I pretended like nothing happened, hid my mangled bike in the garage, and went to my room. The next morning before my dad went to work, he called me downstairs asking if I knew what happened to his car. I said no and that I had just woken up. We had security cameras that I had helped my dad install 2 days prior. Story 53. Not a parent, but I've had a few stupid moments as a kid. I remember one time I decided my grandma absolutely had to have it as a pet and that I should get her one despite her utter lack of keeping accessories and supplies, so I went and caught one, with my bare hands. Still have no idea how I managed that, but I did learn a valuable lesson that day. Birds bite, they bite hard. Story 54. Stupid. My children are perfect and wonderful. They could never do anything wrong, and for you to imply that they are less than brilliant is simply unacceptable. At home cries and day drinking from those two say. Story 55. My little boy 6 and I are talking about his granddad passing and if he believes in heaven. He say he does, and then my little girl 5 runs up to me and say, "And I believe in Africa." Story 56. When my sister was 15 she was playing baseball and ended up getting hurt. She goes to the hospital where the doctor tells her she broke her clavicle. My sister's response was, "So I can never have children when I'm old." Oh, not the brightest bulb. Story 57. One of our adult children early 20s needed to drive me somewhere because I didn't have my contacts in. I get in the car with her and can barely see down the block. I told her 3 to 4 times to put the headlights on. She swore they are always dim like that, but they're on. I made her pull over a few houses down, and of course they weren't on. I'm guessing she never turned them on until that day. Story 58. I got so frustrated with my daughter when she was dragging her feet cleaning her room. There was only one shirt left on the floor. I told her to pick up the shirt on the floor. She walked over to it, looked at it, pointed at it, looked up at me, and asked, "This shirt?" Story 59. Last night my girlfriend and I were taking turns playing Call of Duty. She gets really, how do I say, into it. Well, she all of a sudden exclaims, "Come here you little," loud enough that I'm sure the neighbors heard it. Her 3-year-old proceeds to whisper okay, and goes to her side. I about lost it. Story 60. Not my kid, but me as a kid. I don't know how malicious you can really be when you're 3 years old, so this is probably more accurately described as ignorant compliance, but I feel like this fits well enough. When I was about 3, my family was at a pool outside a hotel. My parents trained us well, so we didn't pee in the pool, but instead got out and went to the restroom. This particular pool did not have a restroom nearby. When I got out of the pool to go, my mom didn't want to take me up to the hotel room. She had already done it several times for my siblings, so she pointed to our van that was parked nearby and told me to go behind the van. So I did as I was told. When we went to leave later that day, my mom burst out laughing when we got to the van. There was a tiny little turd in middle of the sidewalk in front of the van. I didn't tell her I had to go number 2. Story 61. My nephew ate my sister's stocking stuffer candy that she had hidden. He's 14. He didn't realize it was Christmas. The fact that it was Santa-shaped and Christmas-themed didn't clue him in. I'm not sure if he's a dum-dum, or he just thinks his mother is one. Story 62. Well, I'm not a parent, but I certainly was a child at one point. I had an argument with my dad when I was about 7. He told me to go to my room. I wrote "I hate dad" on the wall in black crayon. Realized I would get my verbally beat if he found it, so I managed to keep it covered with a pile of toys for 2 years until we moved house. By the time he found it, it was too late to tell me off, so we just laughed about it. Story 63. I had my 4-year-old circle things in toy catalogs to start his Christmas list since he can't write well yet. He woke up and started absolutely bawling. I rushed in there to make sure he hadn't fallen out of bed or something. He's also prone to night terrors, so there's that. When I asked what was wrong, he goes, "I circled some things I didn't want." We had a midnight meltdown because he circled toys he didn't want. Story 64. This always reminds me of one of my own childhood adventures. It happened when I was around 4 years old, when we were going to bed, so brushing our teeth etc. I always saw my mum taking her medicine, which I thought were sweets. You can already see where this story is going. So one night I sneaked out of my room and made a tower with a stool and a bath to be able to reach for the medicine, which was high up in the medicine cabinet obviously. I even carried my little 2-year-old brother out his crib to share the candy with. Our parents heard some stumbling noises and came checking upstairs. Unfortunately for them, we were already enjoying the 3rd bottle. In the middle of the night we were brought to the hospital and got some nasty drinks to dissolve the medicine and had no problems or whatsoever after. Story 65. I don't have kids, but when I was little kindergartner I would stand on the toilet to reach the medicine cabinet in the bathroom and grab my dad's razors. I then proceeded to shave off an eyebrow. Man, oh man, did I get into so much trouble, but that didn't stop me. Nope, shortly after it grew back I did it again. But that second time only half an eyebrow cost in my head, that way my parents wouldn't notice. Story 66. My son showed the middle finger from the stage at the intermission for the play 5 years ago. At the director's class, by my version, he said everyone in my class were showing it. By his opinion, he said that he was trying to find a thing to remember his position. He saw a clock and then, he thought it was a good idea to point at it with a middle finger. He wasn't as stupid as you cold think. Story 67. Not the parent but the child. I once thought that eyes would only go in one direction no matter where I was facing, so I only walked in one direction for a full day. Story 68. My 4-year-old only recently realized she can move her eyes without moving her head. She had always looked square on in the mirror, so thought her eyes were fixed. Needless to say, she was thrilled and proceeded to show everyone she met her new skills. Story 69. It would have to be when my 6-year-old son clogged the toilet at his grandparents' house. He was a serial toilet clogger, and because he didn't want to ask for help, decided he would fix this issue himself. He used his hands, to dig out the clog. He used hand towels to clean up the water. Walked out of the bathroom and called it good. Needless to say, things were not good. My mother-in-law said there was water on the walls, on the shower curtain, on the floor, and there were wet towels in the bathtub. I made him ride home with his hands in the air the entire ride because I didn't trust that he cleaned himself well enough. Story 70. My mom, brother and I were in a store after tormenting my mom all day long. She was over it at this point. She turns around and says, "The next one of you who even touches the other one is going to get slapped." I decided to throw myself into the shelf next to me and shouted, "WTF, why did you push me?" She stopped dead in her tracks and turned around without saying a word and slapped my brother right there in the middle of the aisle. Needless to say, we were both in shock and didn't bother her again that day. LMAO. Story 71. When my son was 16, he came to me stating the power is out and he was bored. He continued to ask if I could take him over to a friend's house and play. I told him that he could, but only after he vacuumed the house. My son took out the vacuum, plugged it in, and turned it on. He looked back at me with disgust that he fell for it. My son, the only kid in America that tried to vacuum the house when the power was out.